opposition.
Que le Premier ministre prétend qu'il attend que les États-Unis passent à l'action pour combattre les changements climatiques avant que le Canada puisse lui-même passer à l'action. Le gouvernement américain, lui, va de l'avant avec des nouveaux règlements pour son secteur le plus polluant, le charbon. Est-ce que les conservateurs vont enfin aller de l'avant pour réduire les gaz à effet de serre dans le secteur le plus polluant du Canada, c'est-à-dire le pétrole et le gaz?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as stated yesterday in the House, we took action 2 years ago. We welcome the Obama administration and their move towards this. I look forward to reviewing further details of their action plan. Again, we took action on this 2 years ago, which means that our regulations will come into effect sooner than the United States. We also estimate that we will achieve a 46% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in this sector by 2030 compared to 30% in the United States. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The reality is that the Americans are now on track to meet their Copenhagen targets, which Canada will miss by 50%. That's the truth. The United States is taking real action, and they're not buying the Conservatives' excuses. Last night, the U.S. ambassador called on Canada to match America's latest move by adopting new climate change rules for our largest emitting industry, oil and gas. It's a straightforward question. Are we going to get new climate change rules for big oil and gas companies, or are we just going to get more excuses from the Conservatives?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think many people forget that Canada represents less than 2% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, while the United States produces almost 20%. The coal-fired energy generations in the United States produces twice the greenhouse gas emissions than all of the emissions produced in Canada. We are pleased that the United States is following Canada's footsteps, and we will continue to build on our record and work with the United States to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions internationally. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Monsieur le Président, juste une précision, le Canada est un des 10 pires pays au monde en ce qui concerne la lutte au changement climatique, et c'est pas juste 2 % quand on regarde par capita. La proposition ambitieuse du président Obama est un point tournant dans la lutte au changement climatique. L'un des plus grands émetteurs de gaz à effet de serre accepte enfin de prendre ses responsabilités en ciblant le secteur le plus polluant. Le gouvernement conservateur qui prônait une approche nord-américaine doit maintenant livrer la marchandise. Quand les conservateurs feront-ils connaître leur cible de réduction de GES pour le secteur pétrolier et gazier? Et ça ne fait pas 2 ans que ça a été fait. C'est pas encore fait. On l'attend encore.
Again, Mr. Speaker, where were you 2 years ago when we announced the greenhouse gas emissions for this particular sector? We welcome the move from the United States to address this issue. We took action in this sector 2 years ago, which means our regulations will come into effect sooner than the United States. We also estimate that we will achieve 46% reduction in the greenhouse gas emissions in this sector by 2030 compared to 30% in the United States. And we have also one of the cleanest energy systems in the world, with 77% of our electricity supply emitting no...
The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Credit for rivers. Conservatives are having a hard time keeping all their fossil fuel buddies straight, because we are talking about Canada's biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, the oil and gas industry. Instead of regulating them, Conservatives are handing them billions in subsidies. Conservatives have made excuses, they've dragged their heels, they've broken promises after promise to act, and they say we have to wait for the U.S. Well, now our largest trading partner is urging us to act. No more excuses. When will we see regulations for the oil and gas sector?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, for many people in Canada, for many people in Canada that are not aware, Canada represents less than 2% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, while the United States produces almost 20%. The coal-fired energy generations in the United States produces twice the greenhouse gas emissions than all of the emissions produced in Canada. We also have one of the cleanest electricity systems in the world, with 77% of our electricity.
The honourable member for Halifax.
The minister still seems to be confusing America's big emitters, coal, with Canada's big emitters, oil and gas. And speaking of oil and gas, Northern Gateway puts thousands of jobs at risk, and it threatens our coastline with oil spills. Today, 300 scientists told the Prime Minister that the review panel is so flawed that it cannot be used to justify the pipeline. Will the Conservatives listen to public opinion and the facts and turn down this pipeline?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.